As I said, the Corrections Minister is looking at scrapping short prison sentences in favour of longer ones in the hope of reducing reoffending. Mark Mitchell says people with long sentences have more access to rehabilitation and therefore more successfully can re-enter society. He has asked corrections to examine the relationship between sentence length and reoffending rates, emphasising that the goal is to reduce victimisation, even if it means expanding prison capacity. However, the proposals faced criticism from opposition parties. The likes of Labour's Justice spokesperson Duncan Webb argues that longer sentences don't necessarily lead to better outcomes. He emphasises the importance of addressing the root cause of crime, such as addiction, mental health issues, and through early intervention and community support. The Minister, however, maintains that the current system has shifted away from accountability and that the government is prioritising victim safety. And Mark Mitchell joins me now. Mark, good afternoon.
Hi, Leah. How are you?
I must thank you for calling me on time today, Mark. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I was early today.
You were early even. Just a little joke between us. Hey, how short are we talking, Mark? I mean, I'm in jail for a year for multiple shoplifting and burglary charges. Would you want me in prison longer?
Well, the thing is, you've attributed far too much power to me because I don't get to decide the length of prison sentences. That's the courts that do that.
That's true.
But what I can do is, as the Corrections Minister, is do a full review in terms of we're looking for constant improvement. We're looking for what's effective in terms of rehabilitation. We want to make sure that when people do come into the correction system, we're doing all that we can that when they leave, they're integrating with society and making good decisions and not creating more victims. So it's just part of a broader piece of work that we're doing, and sentence length is part of that, is looking at, do shorter sentences work, do longer sentences work.
Right.
There's already a bit of data that shows that longer sentences do work better in terms of, people that have been in the system longer, they tend to reoffend less.
So at this stage, because it's early days, you haven't quite come up with a year or a figure or 3 and under or whatever. Yeah, right.
No, we've been doing work on it for a while, and there will be a report back to me, but no, we haven't. That hasn't been finished.
If this does happen, would you prioritise rehabilitation and support programs be added if people are behind bars longer?
Well, we've done that. We passed legislation as we came into government that meant that prisoners on remand, whether they're accused or convicted, and unfortunately almost 50% of our prison population is on remand. They didn't have access to rehabilitation projects legally. They couldn't get them, so we changed the law to make sure that they can, because we feel that if people, even if they're on remand, should be getting access to rehabilitation programs.
But is it mandatory though, Mark? Do they have to do it?
No, it's not mandatory. It's
should it be?
They choose to engage. Well, you can't. It's pointless forcing people to do courses. I mean, and this has always been my point about rehabilitation as well. You're not actually going to rehabilitate someone until they want to be rehabilitated, until they start taking some ownership, until they start taking some personal responsibility, until they start making some good decisions. And then the taxpayers put a lot of money into these rehabilitation programs, and they should be going to people that actually want to rehabilitate. They want to make good decisions. They want to come back out and rejoin society in a positive way.
But you see then, if they do get longer sentences, you're saying it's to have access to rehabilitation. They might be there longer then, but still not want to do rehab. What's the point? Well,
and that's exactly why I've asked the review, so that we can get a much clearer picture of what's working, what doesn't work, where we should have greater focus. We should be looking for continual improvement, and that's what the review is about.
I think I've got my figures right, Mark, although you can correct me. Is it around 200,000 per prisoner per year? Prisoners kept longer would mean obviously more money. How much is it?
Yeah. No, it's not 200. It's expensive, but I don't think it's 200,000.
I've seen somewhere between 150 and 200.
Yeah, yes. So, and of course, that's variable on. There's a whole lot of variable costs in relation to how many people you have in the prison system. There's fixed costs and variable costs. So, that moves around a little bit. But the reality of it is it's expensive to have people in prison.
Yeah. Well, that was my question. I mean, potentially, it'll be billions of dollars. Can we afford it as a country?
Well, we can't not afford it because there's a huge human cost in terms of these people. They're in prison for a reason, and that's because they have been recidivist repeat offenders. And every time they commit an offence, there's a victim. So there's also a big economic cost to the damage that these people do. And so it's an investment that a country makes, not only in public safety, but also in terms of trying to make sure that we can get these people rehabilitated and rejoining society in a positive way.
The Ministry of Justice projects the prison population will increase from just over, I think, 10,000 currently to 11,500 prisoners in the next decade. But you said recently, Mark, government policies could see a peak at nearly 14,000 prisoners over that period. Do you stand by that, and that means more prisons being built?
Well, we've definitely seen an uptick. There's over 1,000 more people come into the correction system since we became government, and that is completely consistent and would be expected with the change in policies, because under the previous government, their target was to reduce the prison population by 30%, and we saw violent offending go through the roof. So we've reversed that. We are prioritising public safety and putting victims first. But at the same time, we want to also invest and try and rehabilitate and make sure that these people have got the best fighting chance when they come out of prison to rejoin society positively and be making good decisions. So, who knows? You can do the projections on the prison population. We might see the fact that actually people start to understand that in this country now there is consequences. So they might think twice about creating more victims when they understand that actually there's going to be the serious the offending will be matched by the consequences.
You know how there's always talk about the power that the gangs have in prison. Is there a risk that longer sentences could also do more harm with more time for gangs to recruit while they're in there?